till he gets there. I know he's not clapping. Alright, thank you. Now you can have the floor.
Thank you very much, Izine Meribe, for that wonderful introduction. Victor, please, there's an echo. Once again, you're all welcome to today's event, Fireside Chat with the CEO of FlashChange, Bidemi Oke. Excited to finally meet you. Yeah, this event has been in the works for quite a while, for over 6 months. We've been on this, and I'm glad it's finally, a reality today. So today we are going to be having this conversation with you, and you're going to be sharing with us your story, in the entrepreneurship space. So very quickly, let's start with an introduction. Even though your profile has been read, but I would still like you to talk about yourself. Share with us your story, your journey, growing up, and what led to the founding of FlashChange.
Testing. Right. So my story. Well, I grew up in a big family. For starters, grew up in a polygamous family, and I think that is one of the things that really shaped my personality, my person. Quickly learning how to negotiate relationships and manage conflicts. Growing up in a setting like that, you get familiar with conflicts, right? Because something always happens. I recall that as a child we used to joke that, oh, there's not been a fight in 3 days, how? Right? You quickly learn how to deal with that. My parents dad was an academic, now passed away in 2011. Mom is still with us. She was also an academic. Those people taught me the value of burying my head in a book. God help everybody. I've always had an interest in business. From my school days, I've always been fascinated by business, always looking for business opportunities. Had my first run at a business in my first year. A dry cleaning business that had just the one customer. To the glory of God, FlashChange has more than one customer, so we thank God for that. But yeah, from that business to other businesses, played in FMCG for a while. Played with some bulletproof investments, and that didn't go so well. Right, and then eventually took an interest in cryptocurrency back in 2017, and for a long time I was in the exchange business as an OTC, over the counter, right, just me. Before eventually, sometime around 2021, starting to have the idea of maybe I can do more with this, and that conversation led to the birth of FlashChange. 3 years and a few months later, here we are today.
That's quite interesting. To think that someone who studied agriculture will now be operating in the fintech space makes it more awesome. And you're doing great. Okay, so you launched FlashChange in year 2022 with the audacious ambition to empower users, starting with gift card trading. How has that initial focus on gift cards served as a strategic foundation for your current goal of giving users full control over a much broader range of digital assets.
So, I mean, if I'm being entirely honest with you, gift card wasn't it wasn't a choice we made out of some deep strategy over, oh, it has to absolutely start with gift cards. It's born out of one of the oldest business advice, which is start with what you know, start where you know, right? If you don't know a business, don't do it. I mean, I was coming, like I explained earlier, I was coming from a background of OTC. I've been doing gift card and cryptocurrency exchange. At the time, I'd been doing it this was 2022, I'd been doing it for 5 years, right? There was nothing that I understood more than that, business-wise. So naturally, we started there, right? We always had a big vision, but every big thing starts small, right? As much as us founders, entrepreneurs, we have the biggest dreams. We want to take over the world, we want to take over the continent. We all still have to start somewhere, right? So I started where I live, and this experience has taught us a few lessons that will help us navigate the future that we're building. There are some things that are important in the gift card business. One of them is trust. It's a business where trust is everything. If the customers do not trust you, there's nothing. And that quickly taught us the importance of building trust into your fancy product, right? We're living in an age where everyone wants to start a business by building an application, have an application on the App Store, have an application on the Play Store, and everyone wants to brag about that. But the customer doesn't care very much about that which is sophisticated. The customer just wants something that works, right? And at the core of our business is, can I trust this platform? Can I trust this brand? And that's something that we had to build for. And then there's speed, because everything has to be done instantly, right? We serve a generation of young adults like myself, and my generation does not like to wait, right? So we learned how to not keep the customer waiting. And one law, so to speak, that we had in the early days, that we've always had, is the customer always comes first, right? Always put the customer first. That focus on customer satisfaction, on putting the customer first, has helped us make decisions up to now, and will continue to help us as we build FlashChange into a financial lifestyle partner, which is the ultimate goal for us.
Thank you very much. That's interesting. Okay, so your educational foundation, you went to OAU and studied agriculture. You've also taken courses from the Lagos Business School and Strathmore University in Kenya. How has these different disciplines shaped your perspective on leadership and innovation in Nigeria and in the fintech ecosystem?
Well, maybe I should start by bunking a rumor about us OAU graduates, because apparently someone told me this morning that we all appear with an aura of arrogance. We are not arrogant. But yes, how was my journey from faculty of agriculture in OAU to the business schools? How they have shaped my experience. So going into OAU, I went to a small secondary school, private school. I humbly say that I was the valedictorian of my class. So I went to OAU thinking I'm a big deal, right? And it wasn't long before I met persons that made me feel like, who are you? How do you know so much? Right? And OAU quickly humbled me. But then you have to rise to the occasion, right? Because you're here already. You don't get to say, it's too hard, I'm going to go home. I recall that I took a course in my first year, Zoology 101. If you went to OAU, you know Zoology 101. A difficult course and my first experience with German theory exam, right? Which requires that you be able to fill in gaps. And when I was studying for it, I saw the material and I just concluded that nah, there's no way anybody can know this. And then I'm talking to a friend and he's like, oh, I'm almost done covering it. You know, what do you mean you're almost done? Right? And then I was forced to step back and think, oh, I do have to figure out a way to learn this. And that experience taught me something very important. Right? In the face of intimidating circumstances, there are those that crumble and there are those that step up. The little lessons that I took from OAU and the most amazing friends, a few of them who I now work with, that I made at OAU, I would say helped shape my mind and the man that I am. I often tell people that the boy that walked into OAU was not the one that walked out of it. But then vibes and inshallah were not enough to build a business in the Nigerian Fintech industry. And there came Lagos Business School, Strathmore Business School, and London Business School to actually give me the tools to navigate the waters of building a business. And all of that put together has really helped me build the leader that I am, or at least my perspective on what leadership should be.
Okay, thank you so much. So, on gift card trading, how do you ensure that, how do you keep the scammers and the fraudsters away? Because there used to be a very big platform, very popular in Nigeria. At one point, they sponsored Big Brother Nigeria, But right now, they've gone under, and the news is that they were hacked. So how do you ensure that there is trust, and how do you keep your platform secure?
That's a very big one. I think first of all I have to admit that it's no walk in the park. It is perhaps the most demanding of all of it, of building in technology, right? One of my friends likes to say, oh, I don't like anything technology because I want my fight where I can see it. It's infamy. Well, you don't get hacked on your phone, do you? It's a focus on two things, really. In my experience, sometimes it's internal, sometimes it's external. Now, the experience of the users, sometimes it's a close friend that has somehow figured out what their password is or what their transaction PIN is, and is trying to compromise their account, trying to take from them, right? Sometimes it's an external party, someone they don't know, right? And some were trying to get into their account. But both times we have an obligation, a duty to protect the users, to protect the customer. And some of the principles that we keep in mind in approaching that is one that I love very much. In our world, where somebody's always trying to get into the system, only the paranoid will survive. Right. So we try to build for worst case scenario. What is the absolute worst that could happen? How bad can this go? Right. And we try to build for that. There's another principle that we hold on to internally. Our head of cybersecurity likes to say, make sure the door is locked twice. Right. If you lock it the first time, lock it the second time. Right. What the more sophisticated minds will call multi-layered security, right, or multi-factor authenticator, right. And then there's transaction monitoring, right. In the event that some of these protocols do fail, we want to know when the activities on the on a user's account are out of character or out of the norms, right? And we want to quickly flag that and respond immediately, right? We have a response protocol, right, to any situation that looks like an anomaly. And sometimes it's as simple as just reaching out to the customer to confirm that you, in fact, the one doing all of this, right? And of course, sometimes technology fails altogether, and that's where human intervention, human control comes to play. One thing I'd like to tell my team is, if it feels off, check it. It's better to be paranoid than to ignore it, and then have the customer suffer for it. It's not an easy job by any stretch, but it is the job, and it must be done.
Thank you. So, are you a tech person yourself? Because you are running a fintech company, and now you're talking about cybersecurity, multi-factor authentication, and things like that. And if there's anything I've learned about you lately is that you're a very busy person and very, very difficult to reach. So, run us through a typical day. Like, are you like in the control room yourself, checking things out, ensuring that everything is done, or it's just your team? Do you do tech? Do you code? You know, and are you part of the tech operations in the company?
If it's the glasses, no, I'm not a tech person. I do not have the ability to code. I try to learn some technical things from one of our partners. I've told everyone that cares to listen that Afis is a terrible teacher. Right? But what does a typical day look like for me? I'm a night person, right? So I'm usually up late, right? I like it because it's quiet at night. I have kids, 2 kids. At night they are asleep, right? And that's an amazing time when they are sleeping, because I get to catch my breath and I get to watch some Netflix. I'm a movie guy, I love movies. And then it's also a time that I get to reflect. Sometimes I'm just sitting and something comes to mind, and then I'm suddenly on my laptop or on my tablet and leaving messages way too late in people's DMs, right? Just so that they wake up to it, right? But I feel like everybody needs a time that is quiet and it's just there. I read somewhere that it's amazing how many people have never actually just sat by themselves, away from the noise, away from the notifications. That, by the way, is why I'm difficult to reach, because my phone is usually on Do Not Disturb. Quite simply because I like a break from the noise sometimes. It helps me to keep my focus, it helps me to keep my mind fresh, right? I typically sleep sometime between 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. My alarm wakes me up at 10 a.m., at which point I go to the gym, because fitness is... Get back from the gym around 1, 2, which is when my work day starts. And from 2 a.m. to sometime around 3 a.m., 4 a.m., I'm studying, meditating, and all those things that we're supposed to do to keep our minds from failing. And then meetings, work, and sometimes just going to the office to vibe with the team. It's something that I used to say from the early days. I'd go to the office and they'd be like, "What are you doing here?" Like, "You know, we need to bond." I just enjoy spending time with my team, especially because I'm not based in Lagos myself. So when I am in Lagos, I like to take the time to bond with the team. That's what I think our day is. Sometimes I'm also playing FIFA. Love that.
Thank you for running us through your day. From it, I can tell that you work remotely a lot. Yeah. And you're still able to achieve this great level of success. That means you really have lots of leadership capacity and skills. Because it takes a lot to be able to lead people remotely. And if there's another thing I know is that you have offices across Nigeria, like maybe Lagos and Abuja. Yeah. So, good job you're doing. So, on Africa-wide expansion, which I believe is one of your goals, one of your primary goals is to remove the bottlenecks across borders. That is, people should be able to transact from anywhere in the world. And you're already expanding across Africa. What are the most significant cross-border hurdles that you are currently using technology to overcome?
That's an interesting one. And yes, you are absolutely right. Expansion across Africa is a big goal for us, right? We're in the exchange business, and internally, the way we see it is people should be able to store value and exchange value without our borders limiting us, right? It's amazing that in a world that is so connected, as a matter of fact, you look through history, the world has never been more connected than it is now. From my corridors in Lagos, I can do business with someone in Ethiopia, someone in Germany, conveniently. And then comes the issue of payment, right, of exchanging value. And that's where there is a gap, right? It would interest you to know that for those of us in Africa, it's cheaper to do business with the West than it is to do business amongst ourselves in Africa. That's a feeling for us as a continent. One big goal that those of us in the business of building and those in leadership have for Africa is that one day Africa trades as one market instead of 54 markets. Right? One technology that has helped to bridge that gap is the blockchain. Right? A shift now from the traditional rails to blockchain-based rails, so that payments don't have to take 2 to 5 days, but then they can happen instantly. Right? Because that is what the world that we live in now demands. The era of wait 5 days are far beyond us. Now people want it done in seconds. And that addresses the big challenge of slow settlement as a cross-border order. The other big challenge is access to foreign exchange, the liquidity. One solution that exists for that now is stablecoin as a fix to the foreign exchange scarcity, right? The big goal, where the work is now, is leveraging this solution, this quite frankly life-changing solution, while staying in the confines of regulatory requirements, right? While remaining compliant and responsible with it. Because the thing with new technology is, if care is not taken, you allow it to run wild, and then you go from building solution for legitimate businesses to financing bad actors, right? As builders, and for us at FlashChange, we're very laser focused on leveraging this new technology, this new opportunity, and staying financially responsible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so talking about blockchain and cryptocurrency, Web3, I believe it's part of what you guys do. Like I can go on your platform and trade, exchange cryptos, convert one crypto to the other, right? Okay, so what other things do you do? Because now we've spoken about gift card trading. You just mentioned crypto. What other services does FlashChange currently offer that anyone can sign up and begin to enjoy?
Yeah, so like you rightly said, we started out with gift card exchange and crypto exchange, right? But the new big, pardon my choice of word, the new big baby for us at FlashChange is our cross-border solution, right? And that's a huge one for us, right? Because like I explained the other time, we want to be a part of the solution to connecting our continent, right? As much as a lot of founders like to talk about connecting the world, going global, my priority, as of today, of course, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. My priority is starting local, right? As Michael Jackson put it, start with the man in the mirror. Well, start with the continent that you live in, right? And we are working very, very diligently at helping to connect Africa. That's the new big thing for us.
Okay, so that's a great one. Do you guys have the requisite licenses and all that? Tell us, about, because I know that fintech is not something that you just wake up and just start doing. There are regulators. So tell us about the regulatory landscape and what you guys have in place to achieve your mission.
So, as you know, the VASP, which is Virtual Asset Service Provider license, is still a work in progress. The regulatory framework for that is still taking shape, right? However, we're currently on the wait list for joining the incubator program, right? We applied for that last year. As for the other licenses, from payments to all to the rest of it, we currently have partnerships, right, that allow us to leverage licenses of some of our third parties, right? While we focus on building and of course also apply for our own licenses, right? Of course, it's it's interesting that part of the requirements for obtaining certain licenses is that you show a track record first, right? So yes, usually a good place to start would be partnerships, and then as you begin to scale, then of course you naturally want to secure your own license.
Okay, that's a new knowledge for me. I never knew that you could partner, you can start a fintech, through partnership with another platform. So thanks for sharing that. Now, as a startup founder, one of the things that startups usually aim for is growth through investor funding. And of course you can also bootstrap. Tell us how that has been for you as a startup. Have you been able to maybe raising funds, to scale your operations, or is everything strictly based on saved up capital and then just putting back revenue and profit into the business?
So yes, we are currently bootstrapped, right? Up until now, we haven't raised funds. So my opinion on raising funds is this. We've seen a number of cases, too many cases sadly, where businesses have tried to scale faster than they have tried to figure out fundamentals. And you see, the problem is that money is supposed to accelerate growth, yes. But when there's an underlying issue that has been ignored, rather than accelerate your growth, money just reveals the problems that you ignored for too long. Right? Imagine, for instance, a place like this with molds. Someone comes, throws a paint on it. Right? For a minute, it's going to look great, but then it won't be long before the problem that was ignored begins to show. Right? And that's what happens when there's too much focus on I want to raise money, I want to raise money, I want to raise money. Right? Because we're bootstrapped, we quickly try to build something that customers were willing to pay for. Right? That way our growth could be sustainable. And of course, we're not closed-minded to raising funds. There's just one underlying principle that before we do raise funds, we must figure out our fundamentals. Right? We're not raising funds to find a solution. Right? We are building a solution and then raising funds to expand it. Right? To spread the word and to go to new territories, right? But first, the business of building a startup is to first of all identify pain points. One big lesson that I keep in mind when I'm talking to people that are starting a business is start with the pain, right? First, identify the pain. If you say now that you're going to start a business that sells egg roll, right? An example that I shared with someone earlier. It would be great to start with those that are buying egg roll because you won't be the first one to sell egg roll. What are they complaining about? What are they frustrated about? What do they say they wish existed? Right? You start there, you build a solution around that, and then you can now start to think about, oh, I'm going to build an application to sell it on. I'm going to build a website to sell it on. I'm going to partner with an influencer. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But all of that falls apart if you do not first of all figure out what is important to the customer. The basics. As the Oyibo man puts it, when in doubt, go back to basics.
Wow, that's awesome. It's good to know that you guys are bootstrapped and you have the thought of building your solution, make it solid before raising funds to scale it. That gives me the idea that the business must be very, very lucrative and profitable.
I cannot comment on that.
The other day I was having a conversation with one of your team members and I discovered that you actually have a large team, so I conclude that's a profitable venture. Okay, so beyond high-level trading, which you do, how can FlashChange specifically help the unbanked, participate in the formal digital economy?
Let's go back a little. So there's a lot of talk about the unbanked, and quite frankly, the other day I was curious about who are the unbanked and why are they unbanked, right? And it's interesting to find that 60% of the rural communities let's focus on our country, in Nigeria, do not have a bank, an ATM, or a bank agent. That's 60 out of 100 communities. That's 6 out of 10. Right? And to humanize this problem for us, Let us think of a hypothetical resident of one of these communities. Let's call her Motoria. Now, Motoria has had the brilliant idea. Perhaps some salesperson has convinced her to open a bank account, right? But then there's no bank in our community, in our town. So now, for every time that she needs to access her cash, she needs to travel across towns, right, to access her cash. Now, Motoria wants to do business with me. I, on the other hand, do not have a bank account, right? So for her to be able to do business with me, she needs to give me cash, right? And that means a journey every time. You see, it won't be long before on one of these journeys, Motoria finally comes to the realization that this banking system was not built for her. It wasn't built for her reality. Because if it means that she has to suffer like this every time she needs her money, and that's not a bank for her. What we are saying is, when we talk about the unbanked, what we are saying is a financial system that has, perhaps not intentionally, but that has systemically ignored a population. Right? The solution for that, and what we're doing at FlashChange is, as we build our products, we keep something very key in mind. We cannot ask this community, we cannot ask these people to adapt to the system that we have created or the system that we deem fit. We must build the systems to adapt to them. How we translate their reality to products is the solution. From access without travel, banking on the phones that they already have. Some of these people don't have our sophisticated phones, our Android phones, iOS phones. They have a phone though, they have a small phone, right? Bring in the banking services, because at the end of the day, it's not about the building or the technology, it's just about the solution. Bringing the banking services to them, meet them where they are. Building for low cost, for a population that is sensitive to pricing. That is building for them. Building for simplicity. Something that they can easily use, easily interact with. That's a big one for us at FlashChange. I always tell my team, if a 10-year-old cannot use it, then it's not good enough. No one should need a PhD to be able to use a solution that was supposedly built for them. That's what we're doing at FlashChange, to bring the unbanked population into the financial system.
Thank you so much for that. So we are currently in the age of artificial intelligence. Like right now, 80% of new companies, new startups are AI driven. You know, what's FlashChange doing in the area of AI? You know, to leverage your product, you know, and to better assist people in need of financial services.
Well, artificial intelligence is, okay, well, if we're being honest, it's not new, is it? Right? Artificial intelligence has been around for a while, but then of course there's more attention to it now, right? And everybody's talking about it. One big part that artificial intelligence plays for us at FlashChange is machine learning, right? And that touches on monitoring and understanding the behavior of the customer, right? Which helps us to understand when something is off, when there's an anomaly. And sometimes it helps us to understand what to build for. In the business world, one thing that people like to talk about and people like to do is surveys. Send out surveys, send out questionnaires. Well, I'm a customer myself, and I have to ask myself, how many times do I actually feel surveys? How many times do I actually feel questionnaires? If someone walked in here and gave us questionnaires, how many of us are actually going to feel them? Right? So sometimes the surveys don't work. And sometimes those that study neuroimaging have even helped us understand that sometimes the customer does not know as much as you wish they do. If I give you two options, one water with a red bottle, another water with a blue bottle, and then you say the blue one, and I asked you, why did you pick the blue one? You probably tell me, well, it looks better. As much as we like to tell ourselves that we are self-aware, sometimes it's not that easy. It's a little bit more complicated than that. How little things can shape our choices, our thoughts, from the color, to the tone, to the font on the website, to the images that we see, how we respond to the images of babies, how we respond if someone is smiling or they're not smiling. All the little things. Sometimes people kind of particularly tell you, right? And these are areas where artificial intelligence can help you monitor behavior and help you identify what matters to the customer. And then subsequently, you can build something that is better suited to the needs of the customer. The ones that they are aware of and share with you, and the ones that they might have missed.
Thank you. Please, let's start preparing our questions because any moment from now we're going to throw the floor open to the audience to ask the questions. Okay, so the Central Bank of Nigeria has a regulatory sandbox that allows innovators to play around, and develop stuff, develop disruptive features. Is FlashChange currently using any of these? Are you benefiting from this CBN sandbox?
Well, I will say this. We are always working on something exciting, something that has all of us running around and screaming. And quite honestly, we are currently working on something that we believe will change how people experience exchange, how people trade value. However, it's early days and we're in the design and testing phase. I'm not able to get into specifics, but I can tell you that we are very excited about it.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question for me? Questions, please. I'm sure we are not here to just listen to me ask him and then he responds. I'm sure we have one or two things in mind. Should I call people? I should call. Okay. I'll start with that young man smiling. Yes, please come and hand him the microphone.
Everyone hear me? Yes. So I think I have like two questions. One is for the personal side, then the second will be professional. So I'll ask the first one. I like what you said about bootstrapping because one of the things we've seen in Nigeria is all the concerns are about developing startups, and it looks like people just want to get into the startup business because there's a lot of money to make. You get to get funding from people and then have some money to dispose and all of that. So I like that you are saying that you are bootstrapping as a never funding. I want to understand how it was like when you started. So I know that starting off sometimes you feel like do I just need to leave this and go get like a regular 9 to 5. What was it like for you? What were those things that kept you going? Even though you have said it was one of those things that you know how to do, so you feel like, let me start what I know. But how was it like for you? Days where there was no funding or you just felt like this might not work? And also, in particular, about crypto and exchange industry in Nigeria, a lot has happened where they ban, they bring different legislation. So, what are those things that helped you to go through? And then the second question, I kind of lost track of the second question. But when I come to our ask. Okay, that's the first question. Let's take the first one.
Let me pass it to the feed.
All right. I think there are two questions in the first one, actually. First about the CBN ban, and then the other one about navigating bootstrapping. I should start with the CBN. So the first time that I actually thought about starting FlashChange was in 2020, I believe, perhaps late 2020. And then came 2021, the CBN banned the banks from providing banking facility for cryptocurrency. And I remember telling my friend, well, I don't want to go to jail. So maybe we put a pin in that. But then when 2022 came, I'm going to try to share this without going into depth because I don't want to be crying on stage. Well, in 2022, my OTC business was starting to struggle at this time. And it was becoming clearer to me that what I had built by myself was no longer enough. At this time, my wife was pregnant. We were expecting our first kid. And it felt like I was drowning. I recall sharing with someone that if nothing changes in the next 6 months to 1 year, I would actually be broke. Right? And if you have followed the cryptocurrency story, you know that in 2022, we all thought we were going to be richer than Elon Musk. There was a crypto boom and we just thought nothing could touch us. Right? We all had money stashed away. We had the coins that we invested in that we thought were going to the moon. Right? Going from that to wondering if I'd be able to pay rent the next year was very, very difficult. And wondering how I would provide for my family, my new family, was difficult, right? And at that time, I shifted my opinion from I don't want to go to jail to you have to be willing to go to jail for it. You have to be willing to die for it. I'm a guy that likes to listen to motivational speakers. Love them. And there's one that I go back to often. And the guy says something around when you find something that keeps you up at night, that you're willing to die for, that you're willing to give all that is in you for, then you just actually might do something worthwhile with your life. And that was what happened for me in 2022, and I thought, I'm not able to use my preferred choice of language here, but I thought, let's go for it. Right? As for your other question about bootstrapping, I like to share stories, so I'll share another story with you. In 2023, this was May of 2023. Now, we launched October 2022. At first we struggled, and come April, things are starting to take shape, right? And then, of course, we do a financial audit at the end of every month, right? So at the end of April, that was our best month by far, right? We were jumping for joy. We were all happy. 2 days into May of 2023, we had a user that figured out a loophole in the system and was able to get away with, well, practically all the money that we made in April and a little more. You might have heard that in startup, there are two feelings that you have. One is the euphoria of, I'm going to take over the world. And then there is the daunting feeling of what is happening to my life. And like I said, perhaps I should find a 9 to 5. Right? So we shifted quickly from that euphoria to what is happening to me. Right? It was difficult. I won't say it's the most difficult thing that I've experienced because, life tends to up the scale. It was difficult. There was a lot of screaming. There was some crying. Thank God for gospel music. Shout out to all the gospel musicians there and listeners. But one big lesson that one can learn in building a startup is ultimately, perhaps the biggest or the best skill that you can develop is learning how to survive. Just survive. It is statistically impossible for you to be unlucky every day. Someone told me this morning that I sound too aspire to perspire, but it is literally impossible for you to be unlucky every day. So maybe we show up until we get lucky.
Thank you. You remember the second one? Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. That was very deep. I also enjoy motivational speakers and gospel music. So that's why I said earlier that I like people's stories because it just does it for me. So the second question I want to ask was a bit professional, right? And it's also studying the Nigerian startup community, right? And this is more about the people's perspective. So, for example, now, we can call you an entrepreneur, right? Founder. But then for your employees, you call them like a 9 to 5. So one of the things I always say is, my younger brother works for a startup. So I'm like, what are they selling to you that's keeping you there? You know, I always just want to understand that. So from your own perspective now, maybe not a question that every other person wants to ask, but I want to understand how you are able to keep your employees motivated. I know most times people think about money, but it could be deeper than that. What's that one thing that you're doing that keeps them motivated, especially for learning purposes?
Okay. Let's talk about the money part quickly. So, I attended a lecture where the facilitator shared that of all the things that would typically get an employee to check out of the company mentally, money actually ranked as number 7. Everybody thinks it's money, it's money, it's money. But imagine my shock when I see that money actually ranked as number 7. Of course, everybody wants to make money. What is the need for charity? We still have to eat, right? But it's more than that. And to answer your question about what do we sell to them? Well, first of all, as the 9 to 5 bit, when you mentioned that Musara here chocolate because, well, she doesn't close by 5 now, does she? Thank you, Musara. But if I'm being honest with you, saying what we sell to them might sound like maybe not the best choice of word, but let's go with it. I think I just sell the truth to them. When we started out, well, we still do it now. Something that we now call diary session with the CEO. So I used to, when I would go to the office, I used to like sitting down with the team one-on-one. Right? I'd invite them to my office one after the other. Let's talk. Right? We'd catch up. They typically have questions. They have a lot of questions. Right? And I was always honest with them about where we are and where we wanted to go. And you find that everybody needs a purpose. Everybody needs to know, why am I here? What's in it for me? Even more so when things are difficult. Everybody wants to hear, why should I keep going through this? Why should I stay in this? Of course, there are nuances. Sometimes we're showing up for the team, attending weddings, birthdays, calling them to check on them, asking how are you, and actually listening to them. But at the end of the day, I guess if you lead with your heart, if you connect with them first, before you ask them for their hands, this might be an extreme, but perhaps they'll follow you to the ends of the world.
Thank you. Please, that is sound around of applause. Very deep lesson. Very, very deep. It's not all about money, about that leadership spirit, that connection. Thank you so much, Bidemi. Questions? We can take 3 more at the max, because our time is already fast spent. 3 more. Maybe we should take a question from one of the team members. You know, this is your CEO on the hot seat. Okay, I'll come to you.
Okay.
But I want someone from FlashChange to ask a question, preferably a female. Who's gonna go? And the bunk. At least I know you. Please, come and pass on the microphone. A question you've never asked before at the diary session. Something that would even surprise you.
Hi again, everyone. Thank you for meeting the really insightful session. I'm not sure why people like to ask me questions. I've said I'll probably change my name. It's probably too sweet to call. But yeah, what was one decision that you made that sort of failed or has shaped the way FlashChange has done that?
Any chance you can ask something you already asked in that session? One decision that I've made that failed. Okay. Okay. I wish I didn't have to share this, but I guess I'll share. So, sometime last year, we had an issue with our loyalty system, our reward system. We have a loyalty system where customers are rewarded every time they transact on the application, right? And when we found the issue, because we couldn't figure it out technically fast enough, we decided to suspend the loyalty system. It's not lost on anyone how a loyalty system works. You go to the supermarket, it's a loyalty system. You go here, there's a loyalty system. But what was really lost on us was how much it worked and how much it mattered to our customers. So when we suspended it, we thought a big deal. But then the customers responded by letting us know that it is a big deal. We saw about a 30% decline in activity from a decision that we thought was so minor. Some things the books do not prepare you for. The business school does not prepare you for. Nothing really prepares you for some things. Some things you just have to learn the hard way. We did a post-mortem where we were wondering, what could we have done differently? Should we not have suspended it? But how do we not suspend it when it doesn't work? Did we take too long? Did we this? Did we that? But at the end of the day, the only lesson that you can really learn is something that the person that taught me practically everything I know in the exchange business in the beginning said to me that at the end of the day, sometimes, please don't post this, but I'll just go ahead and say the way it did. Sometimes shit happens. That's one lesson that I will take with me for as long as I'm a leader, that sometimes in the midst of what seems to be the best decisions and circumstances that it really isn't much that you could have done differently, sometimes things just go wrong. And we have learned now that in everything that we're building, everything that we're doing, we're prepared for what if we do everything right and it just doesn't work.
Thank you. Quickly, we'll take the next question.
So I know your first classmate is agriculture, right? So is it that just finish? Have you started practicing? First question is that have you practiced before you diversify? Or and why? I know that it's something you love before you go to school and practice it. So what are the challenges? Do you face any challenges? That's the reason why you diversify. Why do you? And the second question is that now that it is your first interest, are you still going back to it, or it is just gone like that way? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So let's go back to it. Do I love agriculture? Absolutely. It's one of the most profitable industries in Nigeria right now. I absolutely love agriculture. Did I love agriculture when I was new? I absolutely did not. I did not go to OAU to study agriculture. As a matter of fact, I wanted to study pharmacy. But as they would typically call us, the wounded pharmacists were thrown to other departments. I landed in agriculture. As a matter of fact, when I got to agriculture, I was, how shall I put it, revolting. Barely going to class, barely studying. My friend had to sit me down to give me a pep talk. I think that's why I love motivational speakers so much. You need to take this thing seriously, right? But yes, I did invest in agriculture. As a matter of fact, up until 2023, 2024, I was a part owner of a farm. Like, we were into cassava and maize, right? Big farm, what is by our standard, a farm of about 35, 40 acres, right? But then I had to pull back from that when I realized that it wasn't getting as much attention as it required. Because my interests were diversified. At the time, I also ran another business that sold drinks, beverages, right? Also, so I have that. I have the exchange business, and I have the farm, right? I would eventually learn that what I had were 3 businesses that were struggling, not because by themselves they were not good businesses, but because they were not getting the attention that a new business requires. You see, where we tend to confuse things as young entrepreneurs is that we see the seasoned entrepreneurs and we see them have multiple business interests and we think, oh, that's the way to wealth. You should have multiple interests. But after a while, I learned that you must first fill one cup before you proceed to fill another, and then another. What I was trying to do was to fill all 3 cups at once, and that was feeling woefully, right? So I chose to start small, focus my attention somewhere, and at the time when I have maybe even the knowledge, the capacity, the infrastructure to spend my tentacles, then I can do it with better results. Would I still go into agriculture? I absolutely would. I absolutely would. I think it's an amazing place to do business.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We'll take one more question from the audience. But before that, you mentioned someone who encouraged you and who advised you, when you encountered challenges along the way in the early days. And then I realized that we yet haven't asked you who your mentors are, your role models, the kind of motivational speakers you listen to, the authors you read. So I'd like you to share with us in the Nigerian startup landscape, who are your role models or mentors, and also the foreign ones.
I'll start with my favorite motivational speakers. One that I really love is Les Brown. I watch a lot of his videos on repeat. As for the books that I read, I'm not really much of an author person. I don't really read author-based. I read on a need-based. The way I like to explain it is that at every point in my life, there's for some reason always some gap that I'm trying to fill. I recall that when we started FlashChange, because I started FlashChange with a number of my friends, these were my close buddies who went to school together. And actually, I went to school with her, right? And then I was now their managing director, and I had to now figure out how to manage these people. And I quickly realized that I had so much to learn in leadership. So yeah, I went to buy a leadership book. And then after a while, I realized that the marketing guy always had so much to say that I didn't understand. So I went to buy a marketing book. Right. Lately, I've shifted my interest to product because these tech guys are just making me lose my mind. So yeah, that's how I do it. Right. Of course, I review the books to see if it actually has the knowledge that I'm looking for. Right. As for role models, my first role model was easily my father, God rest his soul. I think he taught me everything that I know about the value of hard work. Right? He used to say that there is not a thing that he ever asked of God that God did not do for. I would dare to argue that that leads into one Bible verse that I love so much, which is, "Seeth ye a man who is diligent, he will stand before kings and not be men." That man redefined what diligence is. And I saw him go at everything that he wanted. Like his life depended on it. And yeah, I think of him as my role model. Sometimes I wish he was still here. It's not a very emotional man, so he doesn't do too much of emotions. Right? But there was just the one time when he told me that if I continued on the path that I was, that I actually would do well for myself. Just the one time. And sometimes I whisper to myself or say in my mind that, "Father, I hope you're watching." I'm going to say that he is my role model. There are people that I admire, of course, for different reasons. Not entirely because I agree with everything that they are, but just people that I admire. Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, of course, Jeff Bezos. Locally, GB, because I was CEO, Tosin Alonda, right? People that, of course, in Yoruba, people that have shown the rest of us that absolutely anything is possible. That a young boy that came from nothing, no pedigree, no special access, can become something, can make a name for himself. And he doesn't have to be in Silicon Valley. He can do it from the confines of his office in Yaba, or in our case, in Magudu. Right, I admire these people a lot, and maybe I even thank them for showing us that it is possible.
Yes, in fact, it is possible. All things are possible. Let's take another female so that I'll balance the question. Thank you for nominating yourself, because I was going to point you out. Maybe you saw that, right?
Hi everyone. My name is Oluwa, and my question will be thank you for the insightful conversation so far. And my question will be from a place of balance, especially for the community of entrepreneurs. When is the appropriate time to start? This is like business now, for example. Start, the time to expand, time to divert. Maybe it's not working and you just need to, or maybe you found something else that's working and you just need to divert the energy to something else, and the time to stop. So that's like a 4-in-1 question. Start, to expand, to divert, and then to know that, let's just stop because it's not working. So that's my question.
Start, expand, divert, or stop. Okay. So when to start? So, for those that have the entrepreneurial mindset, so that we can define what entrepreneurial mindset is, I will go with something that Vusi shared. Right? One character that entrepreneurs have is they appear to lean a little on the crazy side, right? Because it's not really normal for you to go and stake your life savings, your mental health, your physical health on building a business, especially when you look at the statistics and you see that 80% of startups do fail. Right? It's not the smartest idea in the world. But hey, if you're crazy enough to do it, there's going to be a time when there's a burning feeling inside you. Perhaps there's a bank that you interact with, that you use. And then every time that you just keep thinking, I can do better than this, guys. Right? Or there's a place that you eat, and you keep thinking, my food is better than this. Right? Or just a problem that you experience yourself, and you think I can actually solve it. Right? I recently read a book by Tony Fadell, the guy that founded Nest. They were in the thermostat business, and he started it simply because of his personal experience. Right? The thermostats that were on the market, he just thought, these don't work. Right? And I want something that works. And of course, he has a background in building. So he decided, I'm going to do something. Right? Or in my case, simply just thinking, I need to do more than this, or I can't do more than this. Right? That's when you start a business. When it keeps you up at night. When you can't stop thinking about it. Right? That's when you start. As for when you expand, that's when you figure it out. Think about it this way. Consider this a population. Those of us here. Everybody here likes to eat, right? Now, you start cooking for us, a food business. And every time that we eat it, we can barely get through the food. And then you come up with a genius idea, oh, I think I should expand to the rest of the building. Why? Right? One might suggest that you take a moment to figure out what is wrong with the recipe. Right? And when you do figure out what's wrong with the recipe, when we start to ask you, how have you not expanded when everybody continues to tell you this is great, this is amazing? That's when you expand. That's when you think, oh, I can also sell to the rest of the building. When do you, what's the word you use, divert? When do you divert? Sometimes, let us stay in this population as the example. Now, you have started your food business and you are cooking for us jollof rice. But then, we keep telling you, we don't want jollof rice, right? We want beans, right? How about, for the love of God, you actually listen to us? We are your customers, after all. Every time that you start a business, there is what you think you are building, and then there's what the customers tell you that they care about. Whether it is direct feedback or it is in how they interact with you. Right? Imagine for a second that Cafe One here, right? When they started out, the idea was we just want to sell coffee. But then they noticed that every time someone comes to buy coffee, they just want to stay back and talk to some random person that they met, right? The customer did not outrightly come and tell you, oh, put chairs here so that we can sit down and talk. But they are starting to notice that, oh, it looks like the customers care about this, right? Then you won't need to be too much of a genius to think, how about I put chairs here? Right? And then you might realize in a very short time that people might actually be willing to pay to sit here for 1 hour, for 2 hours. And that the coffee might actually not be the actual business. Some of us might be familiar with stories of products like, I don't know, like Viagra, right? Which wasn't originally designed for what it is now sold for, right? But then, it didn't take long for them to realize that, oh, it looks like this is what people are interested in. And now, nobody markets it for what it was originally intended for. They market it for the new purpose. I'm trying not to get into details of all of that. But you get the idea. And that's when you divert. The customer will tell you, either verbally or through their behavior, they will tell you, this is what is important to us. You should listen to them. As for when you stop, I don't know that I think there's a time to stop. I think stay in it until you figure it out. If the business does fail, then at least you know that you gave it all that you had. And you take all your lessons, your worn-out tools, your tired team, you rally them together, you borrow from the lessons that you learned painfully, and you build something better. It might interest you to know that even investors are more excited about a founder that has failed before, because that is someone that understands that, well, to borrow from the words before, shit happens.
Thank you for inspiring us today. I can still see one hand up, and maybe there are others who have questions, but our time is fast spent. We just have to go. We've already overshot our duration. Okay, so please bear with us. Just one final question. What would you have achieved in the next 5 years at FlashChange? for you to say that you have fulfilled your purpose and mission, and also give us like a parting shot. It's been an inspiring time, actually, and I want to say thank you so much for coming.
All right, the next 5 years at FlashChange. So, for a while now, internally, we've had to look at what we are, and we have come to the conclusion that we want to do more. We want to serve more people. We have operated in a space where, though our customers, our target audience are fast emerging, right? And the cryptocurrency and the digital space is an emerging fish, right? But then we think, well, we want to mean something more to these people. So, what do they do before they come to trade with us? What do they do after they leave us? What else matters to them? What is important to them? Something that some call complementary services. Tying to a goal of actually working their financial work with them, rather than just being a small part of that work. The way to answer that burning question for us is to build solutions that tie into their needs, positioning ourselves as more relevant in their journey. In the next 5 years, if we have managed to build that, if our target audience has shifted from an average of 1 out of a household of 4 or 5 to 3, if we are no longer a solution for a select few, if we have contributed to connecting our continent, not, well, of course we do want to make money, but not just so that we make some money, but so that we actually help to advance the continent. It would be naive to think that 5 years from now, Africa would have achieved all its goals, all its financial goals, and be operating as one continent or as one market. But even in 5 years, we have made significant progress, and FlashChange has been a part of that journey. Then we'll be able to pat ourselves on our back and say that we have kept our promise, which is that we do for you. And thank you too.
A round of applause for Bidemi Oke, CEO FlashChange. Are you doing the participant? Are you still working? You're done. All right. Once again, round of applause. That was Bidemi Oke. So.